is just PR. The Ukrainian army's collapsing on the battlefront. The Germans don't have anything left to give. This is just a desperate effort to be seen as having relevance on the part of Germany, and I guess it's a hope and a prayer by Zelensky. The fact of the matter is, this war only ends one way, and that's with the unconditional surrender of Ukraine on terms dictated to it by Russia. Germany has no vote. Angela Merkel ensured that when she lied to Vladimir Putin about the Minsk Accords. France has no vote. Francois Hollande and Macron after him, again, lied to Putin about the Minsk Accords. The West has no credibility. There's nothing the West can bring to the table. Russia doesn't care. Russia's destroyed everything West has put on the table. And if the West wants to accelerate this battle, to escalate, then Russia has told them, we will go up to and including nuclear war. And that means a global ending event. That's how serious Russia is taking this. So no, this is just a joke. It's nothing.
One last question about Ukraine. Are there, as President Zelensky claimed over the weekend, this sounds ridiculous, but he did claim it, North Korean troops on the ground in Ukraine?
No. First of all, Russia would never allow foreign soldiers to come in and fight their wars. This is a nation that took 27 million casualties during the Second World War. And they don't want to take those kind of casualties, but they won't let other people do their fighting for them. This is about defending Mother Russia, and Russia will never outsource that to anybody. The North Koreans had talked about providing construction battalions in a non-combat role, working to rebuild Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, the new territories. And there was some talk that they may be sending some construction battalions in, but the idea of North Korea sending combat troops to fight on the ground in Ukraine is absurd.
Switching over to Israel, over the weekend, the Israeli Defense Forces announced that a drone flown by or dispatched by Hezbollah killed 4 IDF members, all of whom were 19 years old. Injured more than 70. Larry Johnson's sources reveal that one of the seriously injured was an Israeli general. How serious a blow is this? The numbers are relatively small, given the numbers of people that the IDF have slaughtered in Gaza and even in Lebanon. But for the Israeli military and the Israeli people, how significant is this event?
It's the shock of having Hezbollah inflict casualties on an Israeli base that wasn't on the front line. It shows that Hezbollah can reach out and touch Israel at any time, and that Israel will never have a moment's rest. That's the shock. Israel is not a nation that's accustomed to fighting wars where they suffer lots of casualties. And this is a war that's been going on for more than a year now. So, this kind of loss just piles on the loss they had the day before, the 2 losses they had the week before, the losses. And so the cumulative impact of these casualties is devastating to the morale of the Israeli people.
The IDF has apparently attacked UN peacekeepers. Do you know of any instance in which a UN member nation has attacked UN peacekeepers in another country?
Israel does it on a regular basis. When I was a UN weapons inspector, I'd go to Israel quite a bit, and I remember being in Israel when there was this infamous incident where the Israelis fired artillery shells into a UN compound, killing UN personnel, but also slaughtering dozens of civilians who were hiding from the fighting. Israel has no regard for international law. Israel despises the UN soldiers that are there. They view them as providing cover for Hezbollah. And Israel has shown that it has no regard for the United Nations overall. So, this is just part of Israel's ongoing escalation and, just frankly speaking, affront against the international community and international law.
Has Israel banned the Secretary General of the UN from setting foot in Israel?
Israel has said that he is persona non grata, and they would not allow him to travel to Israel if he were so inclined.
Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Well, I'll let you characterize it, but here he is yesterday with his message partly in Hebrew, partly in English to the Secretary General.
I would like to appeal directly to the UN Secretary General. It's time for you to remove UNIFIL from Hezbollah's strongholds and from the fighting areas. The IDF has repeatedly asked for this and has been met with repeated refusals, all aimed at providing a human shield to Hezbollah terrorists. Your refusal to evacuate the UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages of Hezbollah. This endangers both of them and the lives of our soldiers. We regret the injury to the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything in our power to prevent this injury. But the simple and obvious way to ensure this is simply to get them out of the danger zone.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
We regret the injury to the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything in our power to prevent these injuries. Who would accept that as truthful?
No one. I mean, no one. He's a liar. Israel is deliberately targeting the UN soldiers, part of a process of putting pressure on the UN to withdraw. He's speaking to the wrong people, though. The United Nations forces in Lebanon are there as part of a Security Council resolution passed under Chapter 6. The Secretary General is not part of the chain of command. He has no authority over these soldiers. The Secretary General runs the Secretariat, the administrative and technical aspects of the United Nations, but the operational aspects of the United Nations are run by the Security Council. That's the United States, that's Russia, that's China, that's France, that's Great Britain. That's who he needs to be talking to, the permanent members of the Security Council. This is just pure showmanship for Netanyahu. And, you know, at some point in time, look, back in during the Bosnia conflict, the Serbians, the Bosnian Serbs, were attacking UN peacekeepers in Bosnia. At that point in time, NATO intervened. The United States and NATO intervened and provided protection for the UN forces. That's the precedent that has been set. And at some point in time, the United Nations needs to do the same thing for these brave Irish peacekeepers in Lebanon. If Israel continues to attack, then NATO, the United States, need to come in and provide cover. And if Israel wants to continue the attack, then they should pay the ultimate price. That is the death of Israeli soldiers. That's what it's about. That's what we did in Bosnia. We sent in special forces. We had people calling in airstrikes to protect UN peacekeepers who were there under a mandate given to them by the Security Council of the United Nations. This is a Security Council issue. This is an affront against the international community. This isn't an affront against the United States, who voted in favor of this. Remember, you can't have Security Council resolutions if permanent members don't support it. If they veto it, then it doesn't happen. The U.S. has supported this and continues to support this, and this is Israel, you know, sticking a thumb in the eye of the United States and the entire international community. At some point in time, this absolute disregard for international law cannot be allowed to stand.
Are any of the UN peacekeepers American troops?
No, there's no American troops there. We may have some American forces there as observers, part of the observer group on an individual basis. If you remember, there's the tragedy of Lieutenant Colonel Higgins, who was a Marine who was assigned to the UN forces in Lebanon on an individual capacity. He was kidnapped and executed by Hezbollah back in the 1980s, I believe. So you'll have, you know, maybe one or two there. I don't know what the status is right now, but in terms of organized forces, no, we don't send U.S. contingents to Lebanon.
10 days ago, Jeremy Lafredo, an American journalist who works for our friends at the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampil, and Aaron Mate, was arrested, kidnapped by the IDF. They beat the daylights out of him. His lawyers filed an emergency application before the equivalent of a federal judge in Israel, who released him immediately from IDF captivity, but told him to be available to communicate with the IDF until Sunday, when he is free to leave Israel. Why attack journalists?
Well, Israel's always attacked journalists. Israel doesn't believe in a free press, especially when that press is broadcasting information that's not controlled by Israel. I mean, if you want to be the friend of the IDF, you embed with the IDF, you allow the Israeli censors to control everything that you publish, and then you're playing their game, putting out their narrative. Unfortunately for this journalist, he works for the Gray Zone. Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampil are very well known for their strident and vociferous opposition to what Israel is doing in Gaza. And the Israelis are sending a signal that, if you're going to say what you say, then there's going to be a price that you're going to have to pay. They charged him with, aiding and abetting the enemy by broadcasting information about Iranian missile strikes. But the same information that he broadcast had been cleared by the Israeli censors for other outlets, including NPR. And so he didn't, transmit anything that was new or could threaten Israel. This is purely a ploy by Israel to send a signal to Max and Anya and the Gray Zone and any other journalistic outlet there that if you don't broadcast what Israel wants, then if we get our hands on you, we're going to hurt you.
The United States announced that it is sending a THAAD, THAAD, defensive device, along with 100 or so American troops to operate it to Israel. What can you tell us about THAAD? Is it effective? Is it top of the line? Or why are we sending it?
Well, it's interesting because some of the reports that came out said this is the first time the U.S. has ever done this. It's not. During the Gulf War in 1991, we sent Patriot batteries to Israel, and they were actively involved in trying to intercept Iraqi Scud missiles. In 2003, we sent Patriot batteries back to Israel under fear that Iraq might be firing missiles into Israel. In terms of the THAAD, we sent the THAAD there a couple years ago, 2019, I think, as part of an exercise. After the October 7th attack, we sent a THAAD unit back to Nevatim Air Base because that's where we fly in our equipment. That's the main receiving base. So we sent the THAAD there, and along with about 60 soldiers. I guess we pulled that out because now we're sending it back. The THAAD is an advancement on the Patriots, an advancement on the Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, David Sling that the Israelis have. It's a missile that allows intercept at a higher altitude, and it's linked to a radar, a very effective radar that I think an S-band radar that's able to detect and develop firing solutions on multiple targets at once. In theory, it's supposed to be a good system. The fact is, though, this is not a new system. It's been around for a while, and it's using technology and techniques that predate, the hypersonic missile capabilities. This is not a system that's capable of intercepting hypersonic weapons, especially if the hypersonic weapons flood the system, flood the zone, as Iran has shown its tactics. So, again, this is, a system that's put in to try and enhance the defense of Israel. Clearly, it failed on October 1st, and the feeling is right now that Israel and the United States don't have a solution to the Iranian missile threat. The THAAD is supposed to provide additional capabilities to deter. I guess that's the hope, is that you tell the Iranians, now we have something that can shoot you down, but it doesn't. There's nothing the THAAD will not be able to stop an Iranian missile attack. First of all, even if they fire everything, my understanding is there's 48 interceptors, very expensive system, by the way. And, if Iran files 200 missiles and all 48 work, I'm a simple Marine, but that still tells me that there's 152 inbound missiles that THAAD didn't get. So, this is just part of the political game the U.S. is playing by telling Israel, we have your back defensively, in an effort to prevent Israel from carrying out offensive operations against Iran.